Welcome guys to Pure Property Investment One-on-One. Today I'm joined by Munzrul Khan. Welcome Munzrul. Munzrul is the principal at Keshab Chartered Accountants. He's also a very passionate and involved property investor himself. Today we wanted to talk about something which I think is going to become much more topical as the years progress, and even more so probably in the last 10 years, is self-managed super fund investments, the pros and cons of self-managed super fund. And with the ageing population that is happening year in, year out at the moment, and the fact that we've basically got more people who are going to be over 65 than under 15 in the next 10 years, it is a vehicle which a lot of investors are starting to look into from a property perspective, and I think having the right advice before you go into that is absolutely vital. So Munzrul, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers some of the pros and cons of investing in an SMSF.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I suppose the history, Paul, if I may, the self-managed super fund was not allowed to borrow until back about a number of years ago when the Telstra installment warrant came through, and since then self-managed super fund can borrow, and since then it's sort of expanded quite a bit with the property investors in terms of their interest, I suppose. So as it is with any structure, you've got a whole bunch of negatives, you've got a whole bunch of positives as such, and as it is, there is no one answer depending on your circumstances, whether the positive sort of outplays a little bit more than the negative. Some of the constraint, I suppose, with the self-managed super fund is that it's complex. It takes quite a bit of time to establish it. There is a little bit of cost involved as well. From a lending side of it, you are allowed to borrow up to a maximum 80%, in most cases 70%, and that can also change as well. You need to have a complex structure, you need to have your super fund, you need to have your trustee company, you need to have your custodian company. So a whole lot of sort of complexity. The running cost is a little bit higher as well. You know, there is a whole lot of administration as well, and you must run through everything with a financial planner, you run through with a solicitor. So it's very complex, right? The positive though of a self-managed super fund, what it does is that it allows you to control your asset portfolio in a more sort of a leveraged manner. Mm-hmm. So I sit down with a client on a day in, day out basis and ask the very simple question that how much is your super fund? Where is your super fund? And very often I hear this that we don't know. We know that 9.5% is contributed somewhere. It is somewhere. We don't have any control. We don't know where the asset is. So what that super fund does is that it provides a vehicle where you can utilize the existing fund as a deposit and purchase your growth asset. And it doesn't need to be property as such. It can be property, very common. It can be shares, managed funds as such. But it needs to be into your sort of the own financial circumstances. It needs to be into your goals and objectives, whether it fits. So a simple example, as an example that people sort of say that, well, we had about 7% growth in our super fund in the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But if you use the leverage as an example, let's say that you've got about 125 grand as a cash, and let's say you used 100 grand as a 20% deposit, 5% incidental to purchase property all the way to 400,000. And if you have, let's say, only 6% growth on that property, you get about 24 grand. So use that 24 grand against the 100,000 that you use, you've got a 24% return on your initial capital. There's no question that it's the leverage that we're using. So while the leverage sort of works in a positive way, if the purchase is not the right purchase, it may work on a negative way as well. So I suppose what I say is that self-managed super fund is not necessarily for everyone, but it is definitely for a lot of people. Self-managed super fund, very often, it may not be a substitute to everything else that you're doing in the outside. Mm-hmm. You still need to continue your investment as you do outside, but it's very often is a supplement in the earlier year, which over a period of time becomes absolutely significant.
Absolutely, and it's the eighth wonder of the world is the compound interest, mate. And that, I think that example is really the key to self-managed super properties, in my opinion, as well. Is that it is the ability to leverage is really where it starts to make a lot more sense in the property space. But it always comes down to the asset selection has to be key, and there's a fair few restrictions on different assets you can buy, what you can do to those in self-managed super funds. So I think what is vital is speaking to an expert to get those structures in place. But the simple numbers of that $100,000 example of 6% over a period of 25 years, it works out to be somewhere in the vicinity of $300,000 to $400,000 that your $100,000 would be if you didn't leverage or invest it and you got your 6% year on year compounded. The second example of $400,000 using your $100,000 as your deposit and then leveraging up to 80%. Over that same period of time and that same 6%, your asset base sits somewhere in the vicinity of $1.5 to $2 million at the end of it. And that's sort of the penny drop moment.
That's right.
is you look at it, it is not going to, and personally I don't necessarily will see that your property is not going to probably perform in the same percentage as a growth perspective as potentially the equities or share markets, depending on what you're going to invest in. But the power of leverage, taking your 6% to a 24% year-on-year return, is really where you get that huge amount of uptick over the long period of time. But I think diversity is still key. As a passionate property investor myself, the same as you are, I still am a key of, I guess, very akin to diversity now, potentially having some money outside of the property market. But again, I think there's a few things that I take away from that. Having a good discussion with your financial planner, your accountant who understands self-managed super funds, and then once you are ready to go shopping for that asset, making sure you speak to the right people who can select that right property that's going to allow you to get the growth over the long term and also maximise your cash on cash returns during that whole duration. Yeah. Mate, insightful as always. Thank you very much. Guys, if you would like to get in touch with Munzer or anyone from his team, feel free to contact him at the number at the bottom of your screen. You can also contact myself and my team at the number below also, and we'll no doubt catch you soon. Cheers.